So now we are going to move to the most dynamic side of public finance, that is fiscal policy, is a budget. Right now, we are not going to discuss the budget for the year 2020-21. We are right now going to discuss the core issues regarding the structure of the budget and what about the financial management of the country. These things are so important that once your basics are clear, then in the end, when we discuss the current scenario and whatever changes they have taken place or they are going to take place, so everything I will discuss. But the first thing is the basics of budget. Okay, budget is a very common thing. Like government, we also make budget. You must be knowing, budget basically is a rough estimate. Roughly, we estimate what are going to be our sources of income and or likely revenue or resources and what are going to be our likely expenditure, so that in advance we come to know about the future financial condition, so that we can make some arrangement and be ready for the future. So budget, ours budget, like the government I said, we are also making budget. So ours budget is called private budget. Now government's budget is called public budget. So both are similar in one sense, both the budget basically it is for future and both basically they go for rough estimate about the future course of action. But there is a basic difference in the preparation of the budget. Okay, when we people we make the budget, the first thing we keep in mind our likely incomes. What are going to be our likely incomes? And keeping in mind the likely incomes, yes, expenses are decided accordingly, definitely in order of preference. And expenses are decided keeping in mind the likely incomes. And once all the incomes are exhausted, the remaining expenses are cut, they are deferred. Yes, so that we can maintain a proper balance between our incomes and expenditure. Okay, to make the balance budget. Okay. Now, government cannot make the budget in this way. You must be knowing that our government is in deficit since the beginning. Deficit. We have never seen surplus budget. So some people, they are totally confused. Why don't, despite taking various measures by the government has not been able to overcome the situation. If the government is making budget like we people, very soon deficit will be over. But that is not the case. Because the process of making the budget of the government is totally different. Let us say the process of making budget. The budget of the government starts with setting a target of growth rate. The first thing that government decides, that is called growth rate. Now growth, as you know, is a necessary condition. It is the rate at which production is increasing. We have discussed in detail in the past. Growth is said to be a necessary condition. Without growth, just forget the other objective. If growth is missing, it's necessary, although not sufficient. Sufficient contribution is distribution. So if growth rate is missing, just forget the other objective. The process of budget starts with setting a target of growth rate. Okay, growth rate varies from budget to budget, but we will go to make the things very, very easy. So let us go for setting a target of growth rate of 8%. Right? It means economy has to grow at a rate of 8%. This is the targeted growth rate. Now, this 8% growth rate, it is not an automatic situation. For that, government will have to make the expenditure, particularly those expenses, later on I will discuss, capital expenditure, which can increase our production capacity, then only we can produce more. So keeping in mind the targeted growth rate, government will be deciding the volume of expenditure. Okay, see, this is called size of the budget. Okay, when we discuss budget figures later on, what we can see, for this current year, 2020-2021, the size of the budget is around 32 lakh crore. And every year, last year, it was around 28 lakh crore. So size of the budget in India, every year, it is increasing in between 10 to 15%. So 32 lakh crore is a big amount. I'm going to make the things very simple by taking simple example. Suppose to get the target of 8%, then government decides the likely expenditure. This is known to be budgeted expenditure. So let us go for 500. What we can see? Rupees 500. Actual, it is more than 32 lakh crore. So government, while making the budget, it is moving in reverse direction. Okay. So first thing is growth target. The growth target is of 8%. Then keeping in mind the growth target, government will set the expenditure target. Okay, this is the volume expenditure needed to get the target of 8% growth rate. Then government will manage the finance, and government will have to see from where this money will come. So government has got its own sources of income. Okay. Broadly, okay, they are of two types. First is called tax revenue. Second is called non-tax revenue. Okay. Government has got various sources of income, tax revenue and non-tax revenue. But the problem is, these two they have, means government's own income, they have not been sufficient to meet all the expenditure. So let us go for, okay, suppose through tax revenue, government could manage 350, and through non-tax revenue, it manages 50. So government's own income, that is only 400, not sufficient to meet the total expenditure of 500. And this has been the problem with India. Since 1951, never we have seen, okay, government's own income, what government of India is able to generate from its own sources, broadly taxation and non-taxes, they have never been sufficient to meet, okay, its expenditure. So government could generate only 400, but the budgeted expenditure is 500. So there is a deficit of rupees 100. So there is a lack of resources on the part of the government. So now what government of India can do? Okay. So government of India is left with, okay, two options. First is to cut the expenditure by rupees 100. Okay. To cut the expenditure by rupees 100. But this cannot be done by the government. If the government is cutting the expenditure by rupees 100, it means what will happen? It means you are going to compromise where? Here. It means growth rate will be compromised. And when you are compromising at growth rate, it means you are going to compromise everywhere, because growth is a necessary condition. Okay, the government cannot behave like, okay, the way we people behave. Okay, so government cannot cut the expenditure. Now the second option is to generate more revenue, and particularly tax revenue, because non-tax revenue, there are so many, but more or less they are negligible in front of taxation. Taxation has remained the main source of income for the government. Okay, so in the beginning, but the problem is, okay, what government can do now, because over the years what we have seen, to generate more revenue, government of India has kept on, okay, increasing the tax rate, and moreover, new taxes they were added. Okay, and government was able to generate some additional revenue. But now the limit is over, because beyond a certain level, you cannot go for, okay, imposing either new taxes or increasing the tax rate. Earlier we have discussed, in India, we are paying right now more than 25 taxes, okay, prior to GST. Moreover, tax rates in India, they are higher than the global average. So now, beyond a certain level, I said, you cannot go for imposing new taxes either, or maybe increasing the tax rate. Otherwise, it will have its adverse impact on Indian economy. So can we say that Indian economy does not have the potential? Yes. Now the best thing is to go for tax reform. Let us make our tax system more productive by increasing the tax base. Up to some extent, we have been successful. Moreover, tax management has to be made very, very efficient. Evasion of taxation has to come down. So there are other measures they have to be taken by the government to make the tax system more productive, so that it can generate sufficient revenue to the government to meet the expenditure. So recently we have seen one of the tax reform, GST, has taken place, but other reform, DTC, it is on the card. But still, it is not sufficient. Still, it is not sufficient. The reason being, see the budget for this year. In the budget, government is basically giving we people the data with the help of a pie chart, or maybe in the form of statement. Rupee comes from, rupee goes to. It means if government is spending 1 rupee, the breakup is provided. Where goes the money? Similarly, if the government is able to earn or get 1 rupee, so what are the sources of income? So when we see the budget for the year 2021, 2020-21, what we can see, for every 1 rupee government is spending, share of taxation, it is only 64 paise. And those of non-tax is 10 10 paise. So 64 plus 10, it means 74. It means through its own sources of income, government is able to manage only 74%. 74%. So there is a huge gap. So from where this 26%, the remaining 26% will come? Because the problem with the government is government cannot cut the expenditure. Okay, yes, this is the problem. Because if the government is cutting the expenditure, growth is going to be compromised. And yes, if we compromise here, it means we are compromising everywhere. Isn't it? So tax versus non-tax, it has not been sufficient. So let us say our example. Okay, so to get the target of growth of 8%, the volume of expenditure needed, that is called budgeted expenditure, suppose it is 500. Okay, but government could manage only 400 from its own sources of income, tax and non-tax. See, so there is a deficit of rupees 100. Now government, okay, is helpless. Government cannot cut the expenditure. Government is unable to generate sufficient revenue. So from where this 100 rupee is going to come? 100 rupees is going to come. So I am going to discuss, okay, the various sources from where things are being managed by the government since the beginning. I mean to say since 1951, because okay, policies of the government, they keep on changing. But after this pandemic of COVID-19, okay, what we can see, there are many changes they are going to take place on financially fiscal front. So every changes, what are the likely possibilities? What are the various challenges before the government? Every aspect I will discuss. So first thing is the basic, the core. Okay. So there is a deficit of rupees 100. So from where this 100 rupee will come? So for that, Government of India has got two options. Government of India, broadly it has got two options. Okay. Broadly got two options. First is called borrowing. And second is called disinvestment. Okay. Now under borrowing, there are three. First is borrowing from RBI. Second is borrowing from market. Okay. And third is using public account money. So under borrowing, okay, there are three. First is borrowing from RBI, second borrowing from the market, third is using public account money, and on the other side is a disinvestment. Okay, getting very popular right now. So overall, there are four options left with the government. But when we discuss the current, particularly whatever development they have taken place for the last 3 years, okay, because of this pandemic. So government is trying to explore, okay, other areas also. So they are very, very important, okay, for your examination. But firstly, the basic thing. So overall, broadly, they are two, borrowing and disinvestment, and overall, okay, they are four. Anyway, and in every year, what I can say, one question is coming from every topic. Okay. So altogether, this topic is going to cover 3 to 4 questions. Okay. Directly, maybe indirectly. So let us now start with first borrowing. Borrowing means borrowing from RBI. Firstly, I will go for borrowing from RBI. Okay, one by one. Okay. Borrowing from RBI. Okay. I am concerned with central government. It's a RBI and it's a Government of India. Government means Government of India. Okay. There was a time when central government had got unlimited borrowing power from RBI. I repeat again, there was a time, because this policy was given up later on. But again, okay, talks are going on. Let us start or go for the same policy. Okay. So what we can see in the future, in the coming days, again this policy may be followed in India. Okay. And that's why these things become very important. I told you earlier, okay, current questions are coming, but current is nothing. It's basically outcome of the past or simply application of the concept. So let us see. So there was a time when central government had got unlimited borrowing power from the RBI. Unlimited, up to an extent. But state government's borrowing power was limited. It means state government also, they can borrow from the RBI, but they had their own limit. Beyond that, they cannot borrow. Okay, so whenever central government needed money, central government used to issue its securities. is securities. Okay. And against this securities, okay, what RBI was doing? Printing the notes and giving to whom? RBI. To the government. Remember, RBI is the debt manager of the government as well. So whenever government needed money, government used to issue its securities to the RBI, and against that, RBI used to print the notes and giving to whom? To the government. Okay, why government was getting this money from the RBI as loan? To meet the expenditure, and yes, okay, to get the target of growth rate. See the complete sequence. Okay, RBI, central government's deficit is 100. Okay, so it can borrow from the RBI. The first one. Okay, so whenever central government needed money, it used to issue its securities to whom? To the RBI. And what RBI used to do, okay, against this government security, RBI, okay, was printing the notes, okay, giving to the government. Why government was getting this loan from the RBI? To meet the expenditure, to get the target of growth rate. Okay, and this policy, very popular policy of the past, it is known to be deficit financing. Okay, deficit of the government was financed by the RBI through printing of notes. Deficit, okay, financing. Okay, this was also known to be monetized deficit. Okay, monetized deficit. Okay. Deficit financing or monetized deficit. Okay. Deficit of the government was financed by the RBI through printing of notes. Okay. Now the question is, what was the main objective of this policy, deficit financing? What was the main objective? To get the target of growth rate. And this question came last year in prelims. Okay, what was the main objective of the policy, deficit financing? The main objective was to get the growth rate, because here, okay, we cannot compromise. Okay, So coming back to this, okay, see this. Now come to the whole sequence. Okay, right now, during this pandemic, what we can say is financial condition of the government, okay, is not so good. Good, because tax revenues, they are decreasing, economic activities, they have come to halt, and moreover, expenses of the government, okay, it is increasing. It has increased a lot. Okay, so government needs extra money, okay, to finance. So again, right now, at present, talks are going on. Okay, again, let us go for monetized deficit. This I will discuss, okay, separately. Is that clear now? So right now, talks are going on. Okay, let us go for again monetized deficit. But it's not new. Okay. It was the old policy. But see, whenever government of India is borrowing from the RBI, the government will issue its securities. Now the name of the security issued by the government, okay, it is known to be treasury bill. Okay, I hope you must have heard this name. Treasury bill. Now treasury bill, they were of two types. Okay, first is called ad hoc. Okay. Ad hoc treasury bill, and second is called regular treasury bill. So central government used to issue ad hoc treasury bill, and the name of the security, it was ad hoc treasury bill, and against that, RBI used to print the notes and giving money to whom? Government, and government was spending the money. So if you see the board, you will come to know whenever government of India is borrowing from the RBI, what will happen? Money supply will increase, because this is basically fresh currency, high-powered currency, printed by whom? By the RBI. So whenever government of India is borrowing from the RBI, money supply will increase, and yes, okay, more and more money will come into the market. Remember, okay, previous classes, money has a link with both demand and supply. Okay, but the relationship is completely different. Money alone can increase the demand, but money alone cannot increase the supply. Okay. Yes, okay. It was a very popular policy, and for the government, okay, it was basically a very convenient method to get the money from the RBI. Whenever they needed money, okay, they used to issue ad hoc treasury bill. It's simply acknowledgement of debt. And against this security, RBI used to print the notes and giving it to whom? To the government. Okay. No one realized it is going to create a huge problem for Indian economy, because it will lead to excess money supply. Okay. Yes, okay. Nobody thought of, yes, see, in 1990-91, economy collapsed because of various reasons. And one of the reasons, poor policy making on the part of the policymaker. Okay. This was indeed, okay, a wrong policy. Wrong policy in the sense that policymakers of the past, in the past, for the government, okay, it was the most convenient way of getting money. Why to go for tax reform? Why to disturb the people? Whatever money you need, RBI is ready with the machine, take a printing machine, take a just issue RBI ad hoc treasury bill, and again that RBI will be printing the notes, giving it to the government. Okay. And exactly, okay, come to the second five-year plan. Second five-year plan, you must be knowing, India went for industrialization. Okay. Yes, 56 to 61, massive, okay, investment took place. So second five-year plan, okay, it was based on a wrong assumption. What Government of India did, Government of India wrongly assumed that whatever is financially possible is, whatever is physically possible is financially possible as well. I repeat again, whatever the assumption was, whatever is physically possible is financially possible as well. Now, for heavy industries, we need two types of resources. Physical resources means other than money, and yes, we need financial resource that is called money. Okay. Government assume that if there is no problem of land, labor, etc., okay, machinery, raw material, okay, then money is not going to be a problem. Okay. So why government was so confident that money is not going to be a problem? Because RBI is ready, okay, was ready with the machinery, and that exactly happened. In the second half of the second five-year plan, okay, there was an acute shortage of money, and then, okay, printing of money started. Okay, massive printing. Okay, and this policy continued. If you see the third five-year plan, 1961 to 66, during that period, whatever investment took place, whatever budget, okay, expenditure was, out of that total budgeted expenditure, okay, for the third five-year plan, okay, 20%, more than 20% contribution came from this. And yes, money supply in the country increased, and as a result, what we see, okay, there was a huge gap between demand and supply. Beginning of New India, the impact of this excess money supply we started facing after 1962 Chinese war. Okay. After that, what we can see, again I repeat, that money alone can increase the demand, but money alone can not increase the supply. Okay, that exactly happened. So then this excess money supply created a huge gap between demand and supply, leading to demand pull inflation. Okay. Demand pull inflation. Demand pull inflation is because mismatch between demand and supply. Okay. So this policy was responsible, and not only, okay, India, a new India was born, inflationary India, but also, okay, yes, there was a growth of another economy that is called parallel economy. Parallel economy where everything is black. Okay. Right now, what we can see, there are two types of economy: a real economy where everything is white, and parallel economy where everything is black. Now, real and parallel economy, they are not two parallels. They are never going to meet. In fact, at present, what is happening? The growth of parallel economy is hurting the real economy very, very badly. Okay. The parallel economy is hurting the poor people. Okay. It is hurting the middle class income group people. So these things I will discuss after some time. So beginning of New India, inflationary India. Okay. And this policy continued. Okay. Gap between demand and supply, it became so high. Okay. Then came, okay, 1990-91, Indian economy collapsed. Okay. What were the reasons? Reasons were so many, and yes, okay, the main reason was the poor policy making on the part of the planners. Okay, this was one of them. 1990, India went for reform. Okay. Manmohan Singh became the finance minister, and P.V. Narasimha Rao was the prime minister. Now, reform is giving up the old policies almost completely. Giving up the old policies completely and coming out with a new set of policies which are totally different from the old one. So during 91 reform, do you think this policy should be given up? Okay, already it had done the damage. Okay, and when reform की बात करें, it means giving up the policies, old policies completely. Okay, so this policy should be given up. Okay, during 91 as well. Okay, but unfortunately, despite giving most of the old policies, this policy continued even after 91. And for that, we cannot blame the government. Because 1991, Indian economy collapsed both on external and internal front. On internal front, fiscal deficit was very high. In fact, all the deficits of the government was at their alarmingly high level. Government was left with no money. Manmohan Singh, the finance minister then, he thought about giving up this policy, but he realized that if this policy is given up suddenly, the government will struggle. Then from where government will get the money? Okay, so unless some new channel is designed or some new method is found, we cannot give up this policy. But he came out with a new concept that is called disinvestment. Disinvestment. He realized that sooner or later this policy had to be given up. So let us find another source of finance. He came out with the concept of disinvestment. Disinvestment is going to replace this policy of deficit financing. During those days, government was so concerned about disinvestment, a separate ministry was created, disinvestment ministry. Nowadays, it is coming under finance ministry. And when you create a separate ministry, you need a minister. So the first and the last disinvestment minister of India, it was Arun Shourie. Okay, so disinvestment concept came during 91. It is, yes, of Manmohan Singh. So despite reform, this policy continued after 91 also. Yes, and India, every after 5 years election is it, then government change. Then came 1997. 1997, at that time, NDA was in power. Then historic agreement took place between the RBI and the government, and this policy was given up. This policy was given up. This policy was given up. No more borrowing. And yes, ad hoc treasury bill, it was scrapped. Ad hoc treasury bill, it was scrapped. It means now government of India cannot borrow from the RBI to meet the budgeted expenditure. So 1997, this policy was given up. Nowadays, you can see when you see the current, again talks are going on. Let us go for the same policy. Now, before that, let us see the treasury bill. So ad hoc treasury bill, it was scrapped. Now another treasury bill is there, that is called a regular treasury bill. Now what is a treasury bill? In fact, what is a regular treasury bill? So when we discuss banking, under SLR, we will discuss regular treasury bill is still being used. So regular treasury bill, their purpose is totally different, and they are still being used by the RBI under monetary policy. So this is totally different from this. Is that clear now? So this policy was given up. Now come to current. Again, it is possible government may go for this old policy of deficit financing, but giving some new future. They are known to be monetized deficit. They are known to be monetized deficit. I hope you people are now getting comfortable. So first we have discussed borrowing from RBI. So whenever government of India is borrowing from the RBI, what will happen? Money supply will increase. And regarding money, this government security was the basis of printing the notes. When we discuss banking, or you must be knowing, very common question. Normally students ask, sir, in India, RBI is printing the notes. So what is the basis of printing the notes? On what basis RBI print the note? So when you go through the books, you will come across with so many concepts like gold system, minimum reserve system, proportionate system. Unfortunately, you fail to understand anyone. So when we discuss Indian basis of printing notes, it was minimum reserve system. So after keeping a reserve of 200 crores, consisting of 115 crores of gold and 85 crores of foreign currency. So we started with a minimum reserve of 200 crores. But over and above, whatever notes were printed, over and above means 200 crore, whatever the base, that was government securities. Because whenever government of India is issuing ad hoc treasury bill to the RBI, against that ad hoc treasury bill, that is government security, RBI used to print the notes. Yes. Again and final, why government is getting loan from the RBI? To meet the expenditure. So what will happen? Money will come into the economy, and yes, to get the target growth. And remember, money alone can increase the demand, but money alone cannot increase supply. That exactly happened beginning of New India, inflationary India. The gap was created between demand supply. Since 1962, this gap we can see till today. And moreover, not only it led to demand pull inflation, but okay, it led to creation of or growth of a new economy that is called parallel economy. Okay, so parallel economy, even today, it is hurting a real economy. Okay, they are not the two parallel lines. Okay, they are never going to meet. So first, okay, we have discussed borrowing from RBI. Okay, this policy was given up, but maybe possible that again government is coming out with the same policy. Okay, so you will have to be careful. Okay, till now it is not confirmed whether the government is going to go for the same policy. Okay, but possibility is there, because right now the financial condition of the country, of the government, okay, it is very, very critical. And yes, okay, what we can say, tax revenue also, okay, it has come down drastically. No economic activities. So there is a massive fall till today. Okay, when I am taking the lecture, yes, okay, tax revenue of the government, it has reduced by, come down by approximately 4 lakh crore. Okay, and on the other side, government total expenditure, it is increasing. It is going to be more than the budgeted figure of 32 lakh crore. Okay, so there is a huge gap between the resources and the expenditure. So somehow government will manage. So from where government is going to manage? Okay, so right now, first of the option is, okay, to go for monetized deficit or simply deficit financing. Again, what RBI should be doing? Printing the notes against government securities, okay, so that government can get the money, okay, but it has its drawback, because when government is going for this policy, more and more money will come into the economy, and yes, okay, chances are there it is going to, or it may inflate the economy. It may inflate the economy. Money supply, okay, it has short-term as well as long-term impact on the economy. Okay, as I said, because of this deficit financing policy in the past, okay, the gap was created, but that gap we can see even today, and not only gap, okay, growth of parallel economy, hurting the real economy. How it is hurting the real economy? So these things I will discuss after some time. So first I am concluding, borrowing from RBI, this policy was given up, but it led to the collapse of Indian economy during 1990. One of the factors responsible, it was indeed a wrong policy. It was a very easy and convenient method for the government to get the money. So now we are going to move to the second one. Okay. Right now we are discussing, okay, sources of finance, because government's budget is going to be financed from various sources, and government's own incomes, tax and non-tax, they have never been sufficient. Okay. So from where government is going to manage? Government is going to manage from where government is normally managing the budget. Okay. So everything I'm just going to discuss. So first I have completed borrowing from the RBI. Now come to the second one. Okay, that is called borrowing from market. Borrowing from market, they are also known to be public borrowing.